I wanted to ask you, what's the connection between music from Ireland and Scotland and, say, current worship music? You know, you both. I'm Scotch Irish. I'm from Galloway's, McMillan's, and Stone, Spear, Dixon. I'm real Anglo-Saxon. I know you are too.
Yeah.
But what would you say? What do you see the connection between the sounds of Ireland and Scotland and worship music today, or what it could become?
Yeah. Well, those sounds that come out of, for example, Bill Monroe from Kentucky, he's the guy renowned for birthing a whole new style of music, as it was called. And it was December 12, 1945. He walked onto the stage just unleashed and I'll just use this word, this amazing energy that just took over the room at the Ryman Auditorium. And it was straight out of Kentucky. No, it wasn't. It was straight out of Scotland and Ireland. And because when those peoples were moved off of the land, your Scottish fathers were moved off of the land during what's called the Highland Clearances, which would have been the Battle of Culloden, when William Augustus, Duke of Cumberland, slaughtered all that was left. They took their songs away, took their music away, took the land away. A lot of betrayal, a lot of hurt, a lot of wounding. But if you go back to Scotland, if it's a 3,000-foot mountain, it's called a Munro. And now, there's not necessarily musical reasons for that being called a Munro, but it's kind of unique that Bill Monroe was the fellow who brought that what's called the high lonesome sound. And the high lonesome sound would be heard in the bagpipes.
Yes.
And the sound of the bagpipe, you start tracking their etymology, that etymology, and you wind up all the way back to the Mediterranean, and you wind up in Israel.
Wow.
With the sounds of the reed pipes and the shofars and the cry and the longings, and see the language of music is longing.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons it's the cry of the land. All music has that sense of whatever we long the most for.
Yes.
Innately built into it.
Yes.
For example, the Hopi Indian music. Every song they ever wrote is about the same thing: water.
Water.
Because that's what they had the least of. In the same way that American music is mostly about love, because that's what everybody's looking for.
Wow.
But that longing to those lands is what defined the sound that came over, because most of the Scots-Irish music developed more on this side, really, than it did on that side, because over here is where we long from.
Yeah.
And we're always longing for that DNA and covenantal connection. And music is always covenantal, always connected to land. And so by the time it made its way into the mountains, it isolated into these pockets, these isolation pockets of subculture, until the early 1900s. Then all of a sudden, these guys from New York and RCA brought this big old machine carrying on a wheelbarrow and would set it up, and it was called a Insta Presto recording machine.
It sounds like something from I Love Lucy.
Yeah. And they'd set it up, and they'd say, "Sing me the oldest song you know."
Wow.
And that's when they started finding the songs of Scotland and Ireland. In Ireland, you can always tell a County Clare fiddler because there's a touch of lonesome in the bowl.
Wow.
So there's sounds of longing, and all the sound like potato famine stuff, and being run off the land, and Cromwell coming in and destroying and taking 100,000 of young men and turning them into slaves on foreign lands.
Oh, goodness.
All of these atrocities that took the land away because the song with them to long. That's why you have that kind of, it's a cry of the people that looks like the topography of the land they come from.
Wow.
See, even our accents rise and fall because we're from that DNA, from that blood. And now
that's exactly right.
And now look at the sounds. Listen to the sound of music today. You know what they're emulating? Traffic. The sustain, the pedals, the bass, the everything is just, it's just so much of it is just sitting there sustaining and waiting for a release.